You're about to leave the house. You grab your bag, head to the door, lock it, and walk away. But halfway down the street, a thought creeps in. Did I really lock the door? You pause. Most people might brush it off. But if you have OCD, that thought doesn't just pass, it multiplies. It snowballs. It becomes a roaring command inside your head. What if you didn't? What if someone breaks in? What if it's your fault? And suddenly, you're turning back. Not once. Not twice. Maybe 10, 20 times. This isn't forgetfulness. It's not being quirky or careful. It's being trapped in your own mind, fighting thoughts you didn't invite, fears you didn't choose, and rituals you wish you could stop. Today, we're diving into one of the most misunderstood yet life-altering questions for millions of people around the world. Can OCD be completely cured? We'll go beyond the surface, beyond the memes and stereotypes, and unpack the science, the psychology, and the soul of OCD. We'll talk honestly and with heart. Because behind this disorder are real people with real stories, looking not just for facts but for hope. OCD is often misrepresented as a joke or an exaggerated personality quirk. You've probably heard it, "I'm so OCD, I can't stand messy desks." But OCD isn't about being tidy. It's not about enjoying organization. It's about being tormented by thoughts you can't shut off and behaviors you can't stop performing, no matter how irrational they seem. Let's break it down. OCD has two main components: obsessions and compulsions. Obsessions are intrusive, unwanted thoughts, images, or urges that cause intense anxiety. These aren't worrying a little too much. These are disturbing, distressing, and often completely out of alignment with the person's values. Thoughts like, what if I hit someone with my car and didn't notice? Or what if I'm secretly a danger to my loved ones? Pop into their heads out of nowhere, like a broken fire alarm that won't stop ringing. To quiet that anxiety, the person performs compulsions, rituals, or behaviors meant to neutralize the fear. That could mean repeatedly checking the car for dents, confessing bad thoughts to someone for reassurance, or avoiding certain numbers or colors that feel contaminated. The rituals bring temporary relief, but the cycle always restarts. The brain says, "What if you missed something?" And around it goes. This condition affects about 1 to 2% of the population, which might sound small until you realize that's millions of people worldwide. And it's not just adults. OCD often begins in childhood or adolescence. And the weight of it? It can be crushing. Understanding where OCD comes from isn't just academic, it's a relief. Because once you realize it's not your fault, you can finally stop blaming yourself. Neurologically, OCD is a disorder of the brain's circuitry, especially the parts that control decision-making, error detection, and emotional regulation. Think of it like a malfunctioning alarm system. It's supposed to go off when there's a real problem, like smoke in the kitchen. But in OCD, the alarm goes off constantly, even when everything's fine. And you can't shut it off. Specifically, areas like the orbitofrontal cortex, caudate nucleus, and anterior cingulate cortex show unusual activity in people with OCD. Neurotransmitters like serotonin also seem to play a big role, which is why medications that adjust serotonin levels often help. But biology isn't the whole story. Genetics load the gun, but life pulls the trigger. If you have a family member with OCD or related conditions, your risk increases. And then come the environmental influences: a stressful home, trauma, bullying, major life changes, or, in rare cases, even infections that affect the brain, like pandas in children. OCD is complex. It doesn't have a single cause or a single type. But the more we understand its roots, the more we can uproot its grip on people's lives. Let's pause here and really dig into that big word, cure. When we ask, can OCD be cured, we have to ask, what do we mean by cured? Do we mean the symptoms vanish forever, never to return? That the thoughts go quiet and the rituals fade away permanently? In that case, the honest answer is probably not. Not for most people. OCD is what clinicians call a chronic condition. It can be managed extremely well, sometimes to the point where it's barely noticeable, but it tends to linger, even if silently. But if we define cure differently, if we say it means getting to a place where OCD no longer controls your life, where you can work, love, travel, create, and rest, even if the thoughts still whisper sometimes, then yes, absolutely. That kind of healing is possible. Not only that, it's common. Recovery from OCD doesn't mean being symptom-free. It means learning to relate to your symptoms differently. To see an intrusive thought and go, oh, that's just my OCD talking, and move on. To feel the urge to check the door, but say, I'm going to choose to tolerate this discomfort. That is power. That is healing. And for many, that feels like a cure. Here's the good news. We're not shooting in the dark anymore. OCD has one of the most researched, effective treatments in all of psychology: exposure and response prevention, ERP. ERP is a specialized form of CBT that helps people gradually face the things they fear without performing their usual compulsions. If you're afraid of contamination, ERP might ask you to touch a dirty doorknob and not wash your hands. If your fear is around hitting someone while driving, your therapist might ask you to drive through that same area and not go back to check. It's not about flooding someone with fear. It's about rewiring the brain through repeated, controlled exposure to anxiety. Until the anxiety shrinks. Until the brain stops sending false alarms. ERP isn't easy, but it's incredibly effective. And when paired with medication, usually SSRIs like sertraline, fluoxetine, or fluvoxamine, the results can be life-changing. What doesn't work? Avoidance, reassurance seeking, trying to outsmart your thoughts, or waiting for the fear to vanish before you act. OCD feeds on safety behaviors. It thrives on avoidance. The only way out is through. Recovery doesn't mean your life becomes perfect. It means you start choosing your life again. Someone in recovery from OCD might still have intrusive thoughts. But instead of spiraling, they pause, acknowledge the thought, and carry on. They accept the discomfort, knowing it won't last forever. They get comfortable with uncertainty. They stop trying to control the uncontrollable. Recovery often involves setbacks. That's not failure, it's part of the process. Think of it like building muscle. You don't get stronger without struggle. And every time you resist a compulsion, even just once, you're building resilience. People in recovery laugh more. They sleep better. They make plans. They dream again. They're not cured in the old-fashioned sense, but they are freer, stronger, and more present than OCD ever let them be before. There's something powerful about seeing someone else rise out of the pit you thought you'd never escape. People like Ethan Smith, a national OCD advocate, who was once nearly housebound by OCD and now travels the country helping others. Or Dr. Reed Wilson, a clinical psychologist who teaches people how to respond to OCD with courage rather than compliance. Even celebrities have opened up, like Camila Cabello, who described her OCD as intrusive thoughts that made her feel like her mind was working against her. Or soccer player David Beckham, who shared his struggles with symmetry-based compulsions. Their journeys aren't linear. No one's is. But they prove that life after OCD is not only possible. It can be beautiful. If you're struggling with OCD, your first move is to get a proper diagnosis. OCD can mimic other conditions, and not all anxiety is OCD. Seek a mental health professional who specializes in OCD or anxiety disorders. While waiting for therapy, try this. Stop trying to figure out your intrusive thoughts. Don't engage with them. Treat them like spam email. Acknowledge, delete, move on. Practice sitting with uncertainty. Get curious about your anxiety. And remember, every small win counts. Every resisted compulsion is a step toward freedom. If you love someone with OCD, your role isn't to fix them, it's to support them. Learn how to not accommodate their compulsions. Be kind. Be patient. And remind them, they're not alone. So, can OCD be completely cured? Not always. But can it be conquered? Managed? Survived? Yes. With the right tools, support, and mindset, People with OCD can reclaim their lives. And not just survive, thrive. Healing isn't the absence of fear. It's the presence of courage. It's choosing to live, even when your brain throws every reason not to. It's building a life that matters more than the obsessions. You deserve that life. And no matter how deep the hole feels right now, there is a way out. It won't happen overnight, but it can happen. One thought at a time. One breath at a time. One brave, imperfect step at a time. You're not alone. You never were. And you never will be.